Is it his time? And welcome to Off the Tee. My name is Chris Exusion. You can find me at Chris Ebom on Twitter. This is Off the Tee on Heat Ratio Sports. And we got a special guest, Joe Idoni. He does the Preferred Lines podcast with Chad Eckhart. Great guy as well, part of the gambling Twitter community. He's also a DFS writer at OddsCheckerUS, just crushing it there, getting those 6 out of 6 lineups, doing work. And finally, one of the funnest things, I've been promoting it a little bit here and there on Twitter and stuff, but it's a cool concept, man. It's the Jock Market Power Hour with him and Rick Rungood, also a good guy as well, man. And it's a different twist to the betting world, but overall, he's doing great things in the golf world, and I'm so happy to have him on. Joe, thank you.
Chris, what's good, man? Sick video intro, dude. That was awesome. That got me hyped.
Man.
Yeah, so do a little DFS, do a little odds board stuff, and then do a little Jock Market too, which is a new cool sort of platform that is kind of elements of both. So they're all fun and unique and ways to sort of enjoy a little golf action, which we love.
Absolutely. And we just got done the Northern Trust, a little north of me over here. I'm from South Jersey, but north of me up there in Jersey City. Great tournament. It kind of was more of a birdie fest than I thought it was going to be originally, but overall, it was great to finally see Tony Finau, break that Puerto Rico curse. And what were your thoughts about this tournament?
Well, I didn't do well at it from like a betting perspective, but I was excited, man. I was pumped. I had a huge smile on my face seeing Tony win that. Obviously been a fan for a number of reasons, and I just kind of loved how he finished that tournament, and he went and won one, and he did it the hard way, and he earned it in one of the toughest fields of the year. And they're just I could sense, I felt like I sensed like a different level of focus and determination and grit from him down the stretch there that I had been wanting to see for a long time, and that I had been asking of him on my various shows and stuff like that. So was pumped for Finau. Was a great tournament, and I like that course a lot. I know some of the players don't have the best things to say about it, but it presents a pretty cool spectacle on TV, and there's a lot of that back nine is fun.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. It was a great course to watch, obviously. As far as like the winners from last week, I wasn't real big on the winners myself. I hit a couple. I really like Seamus Powers. I ended up hitting him for top 40 for plus 160. He's a guy I've been cashing with all year. His number finally went down because the books were finally catching up on him eventually. And then he got a little cold, and then we were able to get some plus money again with him. So I was happy with that. I had Brooks over Hovland, even money. That was kind of wacky because, Hovland had his issue. Mr. Cool Collective, enjoying a nice smoke, take it easy, laughing and giggling off everything. That wasn't the Hovland that we're used to seeing over there.
No, it was funny. It felt like a couple of players had a little, I don't know if it was like a case of the Mondays or what it was, but between like Hovland and Kazire snapping the club, it felt like there was a lot of frustration sort of boiling. I don't know if it, part of me thinks I think a lot of the players, and myself included from a fan perspective, felt like they should have just played 36 on Saturday and finished. The weather was perfect. They could have done it. So I think there may have been a little level of frustration there on many of their parts, that they were stuck there in a hurricane for 2 more days, and then they had to go out in wet conditions. And now on top of that, have to travel for the second leg of the playoffs to a course they've probably never seen before on a short prep week. So yeah, a little bit of frustration we saw at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, we're going to the BMW Championship. This was almost the same kind of feel. I went in 2018 to the BMW Championship for Adironic when Keegan Bradley beat Justin Rose over there. And that was the same deal. I had tickets for Sunday and I ended up going Monday. And so it was kind of really dead. And I was like at the grandstand pretty much by myself. You could follow Tiger. You could follow all these guys super close. Like I was next to Justin Rose. He hit this incredible chip in shot. It was just beautiful. And I was like from me to 10 feet right next to Justin Rose, just no problem hitting out this crazy rough. And it was a cool experience, but it was it was raining. And then Monday they played. It was that kind of feel.
Oh, dude, I remember it well. It was actually, I like to the winners that I've sort of accumulated over the year. I like to post them on my banner, and you'll see that picture of Keegan there. I had him 100-1 there at Aronimink. It was one of the first ones to go on. So remember that event well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was my last event I went to. I'm hoping to go to BMW next year when it's in Delaware, because that'll be an hour drive from me, so that won't be too terrible. Cool. But that should be a pretty cool course as well. But I guess if there's a shining moment for Northern Trust, it was my live bets that I had. I'm known for doing round matchup plays, and I was pretty hot this week. Round 3, I was 4-2 plus 180, and then the 4th round I was 5-1-1 plus 375. So the percentage was good. A 75% win rate, ended up winning over 5.5-1. So that was good. So I'm going to continue to do those as well throughout the season. I know we're winding down on the super season. It's been a monster grind, if you will. I mean, I'm exhausted. I'm about to start football as well. I just started my first show last week. So I'm going to be a nice little break for a little bit after the Tour Championship and the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, golf is a grind, man, with the content, because it's just there. It feels like there's no end to the season, especially this super long one. But yeah, then it gets right back into the fall. There's a little bit of a break from Thanksgiving to New Year's, but they pretty much pick right back up with a couple of fall swing events right after this thing ends.
Yeah, I think I saw the Sanderson and just a few others.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to pick and choose a little bit because football is going to get a little crazy. But my buddy Adam's checking says, "What's up? Nothing, man. Just talking some golf, man. We're winding down. Playoff time, man. Very exciting." So we got the top 60 players here. It's at Caves Valley Golf Club, par 72, 7,542 yards, bent grass greens. There's plenty of bunkers, a little bit of water. It's going to come down. It's driving distance. That's the number one thing we keep talking about. It's a real long course, 4 par 5. So if you can get on in 2, which it seems like from what I saw from the course, there's a lot of cut throughs. I saw over at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, I feel like there were cut throughs there as well. If you could really bomb it like Bryson. But yeah, sand saves important as well. Strokes gain putting. Approach is always important. I mean, that's just numero uno of everything. That's number one thing in golf is approach shots. But long approach shots will be important. These are kind of things I'm looking at. I'm really looking at the bombers for the most part. I'm not going to overthink it. I actually feel like there's tons and tons of value in this tournament. And I'm typically not a big long shot guy when it comes to top 20s and things like that. But I saw some this morning and I just had to lock them in, Joe.
Yeah, there's a gift and a curse right now that's sort of occurring on the PGA Tour, and it's Jon Rahm. Rahm is on another planet. He's gained over 10 strokes in his last 5 tournaments, and that doesn't include the Memorial, which he was absolutely steamrolling on his way to victory before being forced to withdraw. So him playing at such an elite level has trickled down, and the gift is that we're getting a lot of drift on other superstars in the game, top 10 players in the world that we're all of a sudden catching 25, 30, 35-1 numbers on that we're not used to seeing. But the curse is that ultimately Rahm is playing so good. And last week he had his C+ game and almost won. And it just feels like if he brings any sort of quality iron play into this event and puts it reasonably well, it just feels like he's ready to just win these next 2 events handily. So there's both sides of it, but certainly him being so good right now has allowed for some favorable numbers in other spots.
No, absolutely. And I mean, Rahm is playing the best by far, it seems like. And it's crazy. He only had I believe he only had 1 bogey last week, and he still didn't win. I mean, if you tell me a guy only had 1 bogey the entire week. I mean, don't get me wrong, if he just pars out the whole time, then whatever. But most of the time when you see that, you got to think the guy's going to win. But his irons have been outstanding. His approach shots, he's just been, I know it was kind of target practice on Monday with the kind of spongy greens and everything, as Finau showed when he hit that eagle shot that was pretty much tapping, which was insane from like 211, I feel like, at that point. But I mean, he's just drilling these irons perfectly. It's unreal.
Yeah. He's great, man. He's just, everything is clicking right now. He has all the talent in the world, and now to go with that, he has all the confidence in the world. Which you pair those two things together in a professional golfer, and they become very dangerous. A la kind of what we saw with DJ, like on the playoff run last year, like when he won the Masters, and like he won the Northern Trust, and he won the Tour Championship. And it just, like, you get a guy with that sort of skill set and a top 5 player on the planet skill set, and you give them the confidence that every shot they're going to hit is going to be close and they're making putts. They become a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just get into the bets already. I always lead off on my show, leader after first round. It's my favorite bet. It's like the ultimate gambling bet. It's it's your lottery ticket. You sprinkle a little bit, could cover all your bets and then some, that can, can live bet later on everything. I'll just get right into it. My number one guy I like for leader after first round is Sergio Garcia at 65-1. He's like Mr. Team No Putt, obviously, but tee to green, he's one of the best. He's very high on eagle average, which I think is going to be very important here. He's just great off the tee. He can go far with it. He's good on the approach shots. It just comes down to, can he be an okay putter? And he's been known to play really well in the first round. So that's somebody I'm looking at as well. A couple other guys real quick. I'm looking at Keegan Bradley, 55-1. He's like Mr. Low for the first round. I cashed in with him with a first round leader. Harris English. I just love his game right now. He's just trending like crazy right now. Just positives in all strokes gained categories. He's an eagle making machine as well, and very quietly, shockingly enough. And for like the big boom, Keith Mitchell, 100-1, just great form. I know his approach shots haven't been the best in the world, but you know what? He can bomb it with the best of them. And if he's right there and he can cut through this course, he's one of those guys that can get real low for the first round. At 100-1, it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I like all of those. I'm not a huge first round leader bet guy, but I like Sergio this week. I bet him outright to win the tournament in top 10 this week. So I think you made a lot of fair points there. He does play a lot of good first rounds, and I think we're getting a little bit of a bonus because last week he was terrible, right? He opened the tournament with an 8. Like he had a snowman on his very first hole of the tournament where he went out of bounds and it's like some shit happened. He battled his way almost all the way back to near the cut line. But yeah, I feel like he's totally a guy who could pop. One other guy I would keep an eye on who usually plays well in the first round and closed out the Northern Trust pretty well was Charlie Hoffman. I don't know the exact numbers, but he's probably got a decent betting figure and has a history of sort of coming out hot out of the gates.
No, yeah, I mean, he was playing well for a long time. One of the best approach players at one point. He was definitely like within the top 3 or 5 during his stretch, especially during the waste management and all those kind of spots right there. He's probably around that 60-some range for the most part. Let me just check real quick for shits and giggles real quick. Let's find the Hoffman. We got him at 50-1, a little bit lower than I thought. So maybe he might make a little noise in the first round. But typically, some books, depending on what kind of books you have, I typically like to play this a little bit smaller, and I like to play about double of that with like the T20 after the first round, because you tend to get like 3-4-1s. They're not out right now; they'll be out tomorrow. So you can follow me at Chris Ebom, see what they're at pretty much, because I'm going to post these guys I posted here for T20 because it's kind of my semi-hedge, because I get pretty close with these guys if I don't hit. So that T20 is like a nice little range, but we'll see what happens there. But I want to get into top 40. I only have one play and one play only. I look for positives. I'm not going negatives. It's Keith Mitchell, plus 150. He was the best value I found on the board. He's just in that groove. And I'm a big believer with some of these golfers, especially like a Keith Mitchell. He could get into that groove. So I kind of like him at that plus 150, plus 220 for top 30. Those are kind of longer odds ones I'm playing with, those top 40 and top 30s. But I'm really bullish on Keith Mitchell this week.
I like Keith as well. Here's why I kind of like him. So New course, right? Caves Valley. We don't really know what to expect with it, but I did a good bit of research today in trying to find what you kind of have to do, because I'm a big course history guy, like I've always been. So that's one of the main things that I usually factor in. Don't have that this week. So I'm going to look back and try to find comparative, good, correlated golf courses. And I think the number one that everyone is kind of unanimously agreed on is another Tom Fazio course kind of in this, southeast region, is Quail Hollow. Keith was in the final pairing at Quail with Rory when Rory won at the Wells Fargo a few months ago. Played great. Like anytime you can go birdie, birdie, birdie to get yourself into the following week, like that's clutch right there. That was probably the biggest 3-hole stretch that he's had since he won a golf tournament. So you almost, like, naturally, I feel like you feel a little bit of sense of, wow, like I got myself into this shit. I've got nothing to lose now. Let me go out there and try to make the top 30. He's playing great. He's striking the ball fantastically. If he can avoid the disastrous double and triple bogey on occasion that has plagued him, he makes as many birdies as anyone. I think he makes a ton of sense to finish top 40 at plus number, basically is finishing in the top half of the field this week in a no-cut event.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at his numbers right now. We all know he's great off the tee. His putter was outrageous. It was over 5 strokes game putting, which is like kind of unreal, but that's okay for the most part. I mean, he's been kind of back and forth with the putter for the most part, but I don't know. I think, like you said, he's playing with house money at the end of the day, and I think you feel relaxed, calm, and you just play your game. And he's got something that a lot of these golfers don't have, and his distance off the tee, like he does. And I think that's going to play huge here. I think some people are underplaying some of this driving distance stuff. They're talking about how high the rough is and everything. But from what I saw with the overview of like the course and everything, I feel like there's enough area to hit. How do you feel about that?
So I feel a couple of things. Anytime a place typically hosts its first PGA Tour event, what I've noticed is 2 things. One, unless it's a U.S. Open, they think the rough is up. The superintendent thinks the rough is up. The members there think the rough is up. The PGA Tour players don't give a shit. It's not up for them. It's totally negotiable with the pitching wedge for them. And the other thing is most of the time when they're hosting a first event, there's a little bit of uncertainty as to where to place the tee boxes. And when course designers come in and they set up the back tees, usually the bunkers and what protects the fairway are somewhere in that, let's call it 265 to 300 range, right? Which is going to collect the majority of balls from different tees for all their members for normal play on the course. If it clears up at 310 yards, these guys are going to go directly over all of them. Like the longer guys, Mitchell, Brooks, Rory, Bryson, Rahm, like these guys are going to take it right over them and bring the bunkers completely out of play on 4 or 5 holes. And if they have to play from the rough, they'll play from the rough, because I'd be shocked if the rough is high enough to make them club down and go like 5-iron or 4-iron off the tee. I would really, that would surprise me.
Yeah, it was funny. I saw this one video of Louis Oosthuizen, and he was using a 3-wood or something through like the rough or something. I think he just kind of just like fuck around for the most part. And then people catch it on video and they're like, oh my gosh, this looks so intense. Like I remember I saw Xander at the US Open. He was swinging like a pitch and wedge or something, and like the ball didn't even move. And I think he was just like screwing with us at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, the US Open is one thing because they really grow it up. But I think for the most part, like if you're a golf course superintendent, right? Let's play this game for a second. You've got this course. You've been working here for 15 years. The PGA Tour is coming to your course. Like the last thing you want to do is grow make them hate it and make them think this is unfair and catch shit from Bryson and Brooks saying this place is stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like they want these guys to score there. Like I think naturally, and they're going to make it the rough higher than it's ever been at this course before for the members. But I think for the most part, it's going to be playable and it's going to be negotiable for these guys.
You know what? That's a great point you brought up for this being like the first time on the tour and everything. They don't want to make this so ridiculous where the players hate it. And I didn't even think of it honestly that way. That's a really good point. So I kind of agree with you that it is probably gonna be a birdie fest that way because like you need that first good impression. And if the course is pristine with the fairways and the greens and everything, then there's gonna be like, I love this place, you know, and that'll be good exposure for Maryland over there and everything else. But were there any top 20s that you were looking at?
A couple of guys, like my book's a little bit late to release some of the top 20s, but I like Sergio. I like Lee Westwood a lot this week. I like Keith Mitchell. Like, I don't really bet top 20s near the top of the board or top 10s. I try to stick with guys who are, say, start around like 75 to 1 because I like to get at least 5, 6 to 1 on a top 10 or at least 3 or 4 to 1 on a top 20 typically. Right. So I'll usually go with more long shot guys, but those are some of the guys that sort of I've circled and I'm just waiting for those numbers to kind of come out. I like to sort of work in a system where I pick my outrights sort of first and kind of really done that. And obviously we're on a little bit of an awkward schedule this week with the odds just coming out today. But yeah, those are some of the names down the board that I've taken a liking to thus far.
Yeah, so the guys I was looking at for top 20, I like Keith Mitchell. Like you said, there was great value there. Bryson DeChambeau, Sebastian Munoz, Harris English. I'll just tell you right now, I went chalky with 2 of them. Bryson, I really like him this week, but at even money, if I can get him top 20, I like that because I think he'll be there. Harris English, same thing. He was also even money. Another guy I really like this week because I just love his form. If I were to tell you Keith Mitchell, what do you think he is for top 20?
All right, so you're telling me Bryson is even money on a top 20.
Yeah,
that seems like a great bet.
Yeah, I found that on one book, but another book I found like minus 150, but that was the best one I could find it for even money.
That seems like a really good bet. Okay, let me think here. Keith Mitchell is, I'd say top 20, maybe 3 or 4 to 1.
So the best number I saw it on DraftKings. I'm just gonna say it. I usually don't like to give out a lot of names. I locked it in 7 to 1.
Wow.
7 to 1 for Keith Mitchell. Once I saw that, like there was 2 things. I put it on Twitter. I went outside. I woke up early. I took the dog out. Go to the bathroom. Do the walk and stroll and everything. I'm like, let me see if the odds are up. I saw 2 things up there that I liked. I was like, Bryson DeChambeau 35 to 1. I just booked that immediately because I already liked him in the first place. And I saw Keith Mitchell 7 to 1 for top 20. He was the 3rd worst odd golfer for top 20.
That's crazy. Do they realize there's only 69 guys playing?
Yeah, it was outrageous, and he's the 3rd worst. And like with his driving distance, whatever. If I lose, I lose. But
he played awesome last week, and he played awesome at Quail.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as another guy, Sebastian Munoz, he was 3 to 1. He's a guy. I just want to bring him up real quick here. Let me get his stats up here because I liked what I really saw from him of late. He kind of stood out to me in this top 20. He's been the positives in like pretty much everything strokes gain categories for the last 3 events. The Olympic competition, phenomenal. He was 4th. The Wyndham Championship, he was 29th, but he was still in all positives. And then the Northern Trust, he got 21st. So, I mean, Sebastian Munoz, known for a first round kind of guy, he's been in really good form for his 4 rounds. And I think since it's a no cut, I think he can get hot 1 round to keep him in that talk for top 20.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And he's a great first round leader guy as well.
Absolutely. So I want to get in the top 10. I got a couple guys. Actually, I got 4 guys. So I found Bryson. He was 2 to 1 on MGM. So I took him there. You talked about Rory. I was able to find him at 2 to 1. Harris English plus 250. And kind of a guy that's been kind of burning me, but he fits like every model I always have on a long course and putting. And that's Jason Kokrak at 6 to 1. He's a guy that should do well at these courses and everything. But the problem has been, I think he's been running a little cold here. If I see what he's done of late, I remember looking at what he's done at the last 2 events. He got cut. They're all negatives in strokes gain categories. So that kind of scares me a little bit. Do you think that's kind of like he's on the downward spiral, or do you think it's just like this is a rarity and you think he's just gonna bounce back magically and like have a
I
great
think he
run?
can bounce back. I like him. I like Shadow Creek as a comp, obviously, where he got one of his victories this season. Still rates out as one of the best bent grass putters in the field so far this season. Has had a historically good run with his iron play lately. Great off the tee. Just didn't play well last week, so that was a little bit of concerning. I'd probably dig a little bit more into why he didn't play last week, because there were some quirky holes where some water was in play, and that can really a lot of times throw off your scoring and your strokes gained stats if you have one bad hole or you have two bad rounds. Like, it's similar to a la what happened with Sergio last week. You take out that one hole that he opened, like his first hole of the tournament, he makes the cut and he's 3 under going into the weekend, and who knows what could happen. He could have, top 15 from there. He could have got it to 11, could have got it to 12. There's 62s out there. So you really kind of have to dive into what they didn't do well. But yeah, I think Kokrak is a solid play this week.
So I kind of want to jump off topic a little bit since you were talking about guys not making the cut and everything. I kind of wanted to bring him up. I don't know if he's going to be overlooked or not, but Jordan Spieth, he had that horrendous fourth round where he was like plus 1,000 pretty much, and he was just laughing the whole time because it was just such a hot mess and everything. Do you think he's somebody that we're really overlooking this week, or do you think it's just like Spieth's times ran out?
I don't think you were really overlooking him. I mean, I still see, like, depending on the book that you use, he's in the top 5 on the odds board. So I don't think we're overlooking him. I'm worried that the volatility is somewhat back in Spieth, where he had kind of negated some of that when he was on his hot run, sort of leading into the Masters, where he was making a lot of birdies, but he'd started scrambling well. He started avoiding the disastrous double and the triple. So we saw that on full display last week. I mean, Justin Ray brought it up that he's the first player ever to have back-to-back eagles and back-to-back triple bogeys in the same tournament. Like, that's what we're getting from Spieth right now. And that's why I don't love to bet him, because you see the 62 and then you see him follow it up with 2 over par rounds. That worries me, and that's what was plaguing him when times were rough. Is he was up there in the first round, the second round. He was having these horrible Saturdays where he would get himself out of contention and unable to maintain form through 4 rounds. And I see that slipping a little bit back into that mold.
Yeah, it was crazy. He went that back-to-back Eagles, and I ended up taking him live at 30-1, and I was like, this is my time. This is the time to take Spieth. He's getting hot. Like, he's going to get crazy. And then eventually he ended up getting to live odds of 14-1. So I was like, okay, I got great value. I'm like, this might just be the Spieth live bet I was talking about last week that I need to jump on. At 30-1, I was like, oh my gosh, he just hit 2 Eagles in a row. I have to take it. So I ended up taking it, but it burned me at the end. But, it is what it is. I like to find the value. If it doesn't work out, then so be it. But my buddy Mitch is checking in. He says, thoughts on Paul Casey?
Love PC this week. I'm going to be heavy on him. I think in DraftKings, I think that he's underpriced at $8,200 when we sort of get to DraftKings, but phenomenal off the tee. Like, he's third in ball striking recently, 5th in approach, and he rated out really well at the 2 sort of courses that I comped, which the one that everyone's got is Quail, but the other one that I don't feel like enough people are talking about is Augusta. And Casey always plays well at Augusta. I think that last week he had a horrendous putting week. So I'm hoping that he has a little bit of a bounce back there. Like, those are the type of situations I look for, though, Chris. Like, when a guy is a decent player and he has a shit putting week, a la Paul Casey, a la kind of like Daniel Berger did last week. Like, it's usually a positive EV or whatever you want to call it approach to follow up and back that guy the following week. So I like him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat with you. That's like kind of one of the things I look at as well. Bad putting with everything else going well. I think it's a good recipe because the putter is always volatile. It's the PGA players, they're professionals, they're great. They're all good putters. It's not like they're bad putters,
Right.
It's just a matter of when we can catch them with that good putter. And most likely it's going to happen when they have that horrendous putter. And you took the words right out of my mouth. He was horrible with the putter. He lost almost 6.5 strokes putting.
Yeah, but the
Absolutely
week before he
outrageous.
gained 7. So it's like that's a 14 stroke swing right there. Like that kind of stuff happens, and there's certain players that it happens to more than others, and Paul Casey tends to be one of those guys. What I'm concerned with more so is that he gained 5.3 strokes tee to green, 5.7 on approach, was good off the tee, and had just an absolutely horrendous putting week. So it's usually a good spot to hop on someone.
Yeah, and his round green game wasn't good either, but I don't think that's gonna be a big deal for this kind of course right here. But I'm in the same boat as you. It's funny because before the odds came out, I put golfers I like, and I was like Bryson DeChambeau, Cameron Champ, Harris English, Xander Schauffele, Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas, Cam Davis, Paul Casey, Keith Mitchell. Those were the guys I put down before any odds came out. So I was like, let me just put like the guys I like down. Paul Casey was one of them. But I think I'm more in your boat as putting him in DFS or even like Jock Market. Like I feel like he could be a guy that you could really bank on. I'm totally on board with that. I just couldn't find him in a betting market for me personally.
Yep. Same.
Yep. So I want to get into the winner for the most part. I talked about earlier. I originally liked Bryson before the number came out. I thought he was going to be in like the teens. I was like, oh man, this course is just such a great fit for him. I finally found a number right off the bat on DraftKings. It was 35-1. I was like, I have to take this. I have to take the bait. Like he was already the guy I liked on top of in my head at that point. I mean, he putts very well on bent grass. His approach game has been real solid of late. We all know how good of his driver can be for the most part. He's actually been using kind of that like 3-wood for the most part on some holes, which is kind of shocking because he's always about the big bombing and everything like that. But he's been kind of try and transform to like the course almost. And he used to be that guy that was like, I'm going to beat the course the way I want to beat it. Like I'm above the course. And I think he's starting to get in his head. I have to kind of play to the course. So I really like him there at 35-1. And the best number I could find for this guy, Harris English, 40-1. He's one of the top guys with the eagle percentage over here. And he's just been playing so good. And when I look at what he does putting wise, I'm pretty sure he is like his best surface is bent grass, and it is. I mean, overall, he's just a great putter in general. But if you look at what he's done, it's all green. I mean, it's been going on for weeks upon weeks. Like this isn't just a rarity. He got out of that funk and he's continued to roll with it, and rightfully so. So I really like him there at 40-1 as well.
Yeah, for me, it was 3 guys right off the bat, and I was looking for all 3 of them. And at the book that I have, they were all the same number at 28-1, and it was Bryson, it was Rory, it was Brooks. I think they all have the characteristics and the skill sets to really compete here with the off the tee game that I'm looking for. Bryson is, he's on his best back-to-back stretch of approach weeks that he's been on since he finished like first and third back in March. So his iron play is the best it's been in 6 months, which is a good sign for me. He lost strokes putting last week. He's one of the best putters on tour, man. I'll tell you, like he's a guy that consistently gains no matter the surface. He's gaining strokes putting, and he's the best off the tee guy in the field. I think that Rory may have burned a lot of people last week, but he was coming in with such good ball striking form and just played terrible last week. And with Brooks, he's flirting, man. He's been like we see him, they show him a lot. He's on the leaderboard. He has a bad hole. He opens with a bogey, claws his way back, but he's in like this little bit of semi funk, it feels like. But then you look and you're like, holy shit, there's another top 10 for Brooks. Oh my God, he finished 6th. Oh my God, he finished 4th. And it doesn't feel like it's all clicking. And he's so good that when it does click, he's going to win.
Yeah. So I got another question here. Shane Lowry or Johnny Vegas? Who has the better week? I'm going to start off. I think Vegas is going to have the better week. I think the distance is going to matter here. When I look at what Shane Lowry has done, his last 4 events he's been in, he's lost at least 2.5 strokes off the tee. I don't think you can do that here, especially, I mean, he's not even a big driver, I don't believe. I'm looking at what he does driving distance. It's not that good in the first place. So if his driving distance isn't even that good on top of that, he must be out of control with his driver at this point as well. So I'm looking at what Vegas is doing here. He's been great off the tee. He's known for being off the tee. His approach game has been fantastic. He's been good almost in every category. Once in a blue moon, he has a terrible putting day. I mean, putting week, he just had at the Northern Trust. Like we just talked about, guys coming off a bad putter. Vegas, I would definitely lean Vegas here.
I like Vegas a lot this week. The only pause for hesitation that I have, Mitch, is Lowry's a lot better player than Johnny Vegas. He's had a lot more success throughout his career. He doesn't. You're right. There's no one point that you're like, this is necessarily strength. He's really good around the greens, and like you said, I don't know how much that matters this week. But the guy's still putting together good finishes. And I don't know if that's what you're determining on it for a matchup, and that's all that matters is who finishes better. I mean, he's got 4 top 12s in his last 6 starts, 4th, 6th, 12th, 11th in his last 6 starts. So while he's not excelling in any one category, he's still finishing well. So that would be, on the surface, it feels lopsided because Lowry feels like a lot better player, but I think this place sets up a lot better for Vegas.
Yeah, I think you got a good chance of getting more birdies with Vegas and more eagles in that aspect. So if you're even going with the DFS route, it doesn't even matter how many bogeys you get because there's a no-cut event anyway. So if you're going to rip off those birdies and eagles, I think Vegas is more capable of doing that than Shane Lowry.
Yeah.
So I want to get in a couple matchups that really stood out to me for the most part. The biggest news that you heard about when you were watching the event, the Northern Trust, that just came out of the blue, which we all would have loved to really know, was Colin Morikawa and his back injury. When we looked at what he was doing with the approach game, we're like, what is going on? He's in the negative. He's barely even. Like, he's the best iron player in the world. Like, what is going on? Is he trending in the wrong direction? Is this a fluke? And then we find out he has a back injury since the Olympics. And that kind of explains everything, Joe.
Yeah, no doubt. I liked Morikawa. I was on him pretty heavy in DFS last week and had no idea that was an issue. So that was his worst. He just didn't look right. And I kind of got the sense early on that it wasn't going to be his week. And then you're right. That information sort of trickled out about the back, which confirmed it.
Yeah, so I'm going to attack that in the matchups. Xander Schauffele is minus 120. Old reliable Xander Schauffele. Everything goes well. The driver's great. The putter's great. Everything's great with Xander. I'll take a minus 120 over Colin Morikawa, who, something is wrong with him. Nothing's going to change in this 2 days. Like, if it does, then so be it. I know he's young, so he could bounce back more than like a guy like myself. If I get banged up with my back, I'm done. But Xander, I really like minus 120. And I actually kind of like, I like Cantley minus 110 over Brooks Koepka. And hear me out here. So I'm trying to see what Cantley has done of late. His best putting surface is bent grass greens. But if you look at what he's done, he's been in the positives in like every category of late. Really, the putter at the World Golf Championship was terrible. And I don't even know what kind of putting surface that was on for the most part, but his approach game has been great. Everything's just been dialed in with Cantley. Like, he's kind of like that Xander, Mr. Reliable, and I was lucky enough. That was my last cashing, like, outright win was Cantley on the, the whole Rahm, COVID issue thing. I mean, it is what it is. I'll take a winner any way I can because I got screwed last week with Burns because I was on the Burns train all last week and I was touting that, and I'm like, this is the week for Burns. Like, I had him outright. I had him first round leader, top 20, top 10, and he was contending on Sunday. He was third, and then he drops out of the top 20. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't mind picking on Brooks in matchups. I think if there's a spot to sort of go after him, that's where it is, because sometimes he'll just sort of eject and get this almost I don't care aspect to it, and you can trust that Cantley is going to grind it out. My favorite one that I've seen thus far is Casey over Webb. Nice. Webb's just been volatile. They're both minus 110. I mentioned earlier why I like Casey this week. Webb is a big course history guy. He has his spots, par 70, short course. That's where you want to play Webb. This is not that. It's a longer course, smaller greens, par 72, a lot of par 5s. To me, that screams like Casey should have a decent advantage there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually a really good spot because Webb's all about hitting the accuracy, with the fairways and answers like that as well. And Berger, those kind of guys. I'm always on the wrong side of Berger, so I just don't blame him anymore because I took him for the PGA Championship, and he just got absolutely mauled by the wind with this fade shot, and I'm like, whatever. Like I just thought it was a good fit for him, and obviously it wasn't at that point because he didn't make the cut. He was like plus 1,000. But, so I'm staying away from Berger for the most part on that. And I like where you're at with Paul Casey with Webb Simpson. I think that's a really good spot. So now that I want to get in DFS with you a little bit, since we're off the betting market over here. 1 second. All right, so I wanted to go through each each category. I want to have one play, one fade. So if we look at the board on the top over here, we got John Rahm, Schauffele, Spieth, Thomas, DJ, Brooks Koepka, and Colin Morikawa. Who you playing? Who you fading?
Believe it or not, I'm going to play Rahm. So I'm going to spring for it. I think that just the floor is so high right now that I don't mind paying up the price. And my fade would be Spieth, just because I don't like him at a longer course like this, and I don't like the volatility that I've seen with all the big numbers that are starting to appear on his cards. So those are sort of my two in this upper range.
Okay. So I'm kind of leaning towards Xander this week. I almost feel like he's going to be kind of the forgotten guy because he's so high in point and, in salary. And John Rahm's been fantastic, so rightfully so. A lot of people are going to play him. So I feel like you might be able to get some good, like, lower percentage with him as well. And I talked about him before. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think this might be the only time I am ever going to say this. I'm going to fade Colin Morikawa, which this will probably be the one time and only time in my life that I ever say that. But just because of the injury, it's not because of his play. I'm going to be fading him there. So I'm looking over at the 9K range. Tony Finau coming off a victory. Louis Oosthuizen, Cam Smith, Rory, Bryson, Cantlay, Hovland, and Berger. Who you playing? Who you fading?
I'm going to play Bryson. You're probably playing Bryson too, but I think the price is too good really to pass up here. And on the fade, I might fade Louis this week. He's on such a run, but he's had a little bit of time off, and that if I had, when you're up in these ranges, it's not so much that you're fading a guy. It's more so that you find other players that are more attractive. So I like the dip in price on Bryson and Rory over someone like Louis, who's more priced. I would definitely play those two over him.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Bryson is a guy. I like a lot of guys in this range. And believe it or not, I honestly would almost want to fade Finau. I think he's going to get a whole new level of ownership. And he's coming off a win that he hasn't had in 5 years or so. And I don't know how he's going to adjust to that. So we all know Finau's really good. He just came off one of the toughest victories on tour for the most part. And I don't know, that win just might keep him easy going for the next round. This BMW right now, he's already locked his probably Ryder Cup spot. Like everything is just peaches and cream for Tony Finau. So I'll try to stay away from him this week because I don't know how he's going to react to the actual winning. It's not based off the skill set.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get down to the 8K range right here. We got Sky Scheffler, Hideki, Answer, Connors, Webb, English, Burns, Casey, Neiman, and Sanjay. Who we playing and who we staying away from?
Playing Casey. Mentioned earlier why I like him. The guy that I'm fading this week is going to be Abe Answer. It's a tough spot, I think, where he's at price point wise. I think that he's the third shortest guy off the tee in the field out of 69 players. He ranks 67th. He mentioned last week that basically coming off that FedEx win, he hadn't practiced. He went home. He celebrated with family. He was in the process of moving homes, so he really hadn't touched a club. And he mentioned earlier today, I saw in an interview with him that he only played like 3 or 4 holes today. He's really just trying to keep himself fresh for the Tour Championship, which he's pretty much locked into with that FedEx Cup win, no matter how he plays this week. So I think he may be in a spot where he doesn't see this as a great fit for him and maybe looking forward more so to next week. Hence the reason I'm not going to play Abe.
Wow, yeah, that's some really good info right there, honestly, about Answer that he only has been playing a couple of holes. He just wants to get through this week. I think that's a good point to bring up because that might be a good spot to attack him on the matchups, honestly, because if he's not going to – he just wants to get out of Dodge and just be done this week, maybe he doesn't have a good week. Maybe he gets, well, you can't be cut, I guess. But I mean, like maybe he just takes it easy and just goes through the motion and everything because this isn't really a course fit for him. And he already knows he has good position. So I like that. I'll piggyback off the answer fade right there. I'm going with Harris English. He's just playing too good. And this low of a price, he's probably going to be really a big time owned. Do you think he's going to get into that like 20% range?
He could, I don't really honestly, I don't really put a whole lot into ownership. I try not to look at it for a couple of reasons. Okay. One, I feel like a lot of the projections are normally wrong. And okay. Two, I just feel like for me, it puts too many variables into my head when I'm building lineups. Like I'm trying to make the best lineup that I can make, and I don't really worry about chalk too much. And try to pivot off a guy that I think is going to be a great fit this week because he's 20% owned and shift to a guy that isn't as good of a fit because he's sub 10%. You know what I'm saying? So like that's just kind of how I go about DFS. There's different schools of thoughts on that. Most people would say that I'm wrong there. But if you think Harris English is going to play this well this week, my advice would be play him.
Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty interesting you brought that up. You're not worried about the percentages or anything because I don't know. That's always something. I mean, I'm still trying to get this whole DFS thing down. I've been having some really bad luck where I've been like top of the leaderboard for like 2-3 days, and the fourth day happens, and then I end up like not cashing. It's like absolutely insane. It's been like a complete mind fuck. And it's like, I almost just want to like not even look at it till like Sunday almost. But it's like, I feel like I have the right lineups and then it happens that way. Maybe I should just not care about the percentages and just grip it and rip it.
Dude, I don't. Like I've always said this, and I think people put way too much into it. And most everyone who is a quote unquote like DFS expert and does this really well would tell me that I'm flat out wrong, that you have to play game theory and play ownership because it gives you much more leverage. But like I've seen it firsthand at the Wyndham last year, the biggest hit of my life. I finished second in a contest with 93,000 people in that contest. And I had one of the most chalkiest lineups out there, and it wasn't duplicated with 93,000 people. I played a 38% Webb Simpson. I had Sungjae Im at that tournament who was like 26% owned. Like the two chalkiest guys in the field were in my lineup, and it wasn't duplicated with that many entries. So to me, I'm like, there's 6 spots. There's ways to pivot. Like you don't want to take 6 guys that are chalk, but especially in this top range, like 8K and above, if a guy's 25% owned and you think he's going to play well and other people think he's going to play well, guess what? Most of the time he's probably going to play well. Like you shouldn't pivot off a guy just because it's a great fit for him and more people are playing him. That's my stance.
No, I mean, you just showed the example. You did great in a huge tournament with a pretty chalky lineup for the most part, and it paid off. And I didn't think that was actually possible. I'll be honest with you, because every time I see these big lineups that end up doing well, they have like these 2%ers that like go off and crazy, like they get in the top 10s and everything. But it can be done. You've proved it. So you're giving me I'm all about absorbing the information when it comes to DFS because it's a puzzle that I'm intrigued by, but it's like I'm such a novice when it comes to it. I feel like there is some edge you can get to it. It's just, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it at the end of the day.
I think that there's good chalk and bad chalk. So if someone is super high owned at like $7,000. Like I love Johnny Vegas. I know you love Johnny Vegas this week, but at 7,100, like that might be bad chalk because at the end of the day, it's Johnny Vegas, right? Sure. Like all the stat models are going to have him pop. If he's super high owned, like that may be a guy that I shift away from. But if Bryson this week is super chalk, like I'm not going to avoid Bryson and play Patrick Cantlay instead because he's half the ownership. Like I think Bryson could win this thing. You know what I'm saying? Sure, so I think it depends a little bit on the player and what the price point is.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm going to go about this. I'm going to not even think about, what like pretty much like what the ownership is. I'm just going to try and make my best lineup. And my buddy Mitch is checking in. He says that's exactly 160K too. And it's crazy. Oh. You know what the crazy thing about his thing is? He played one lineup in like 7 different like big tournament things, and like he just cashed like crazy. He only played one lineup. It's not like he did like
That's
those
how I did
lineups and everything. He put one lineup in like 6-7 contests with like kind of big buy-ins or just big pools or whatever. It was just one line. I never see anything like it because
that's all it takes, man.
Yeah,
I won was second in the. It was back when COVID was going on and golf was like the only sport, so they ratcheted up the payout structures. But it was like basically the drive to the green and finished second in it. And same thing. It was 150 max tournament, which $20 buy-in, and everyone was basically pro DFS players are maxing that out. They're putting in had 3. So, I usually don't build more than 3 lineups, and that's how I hand build them. I like to look at things and tinker with them. And I think that's the way to go for me instead of just like entering in spreadsheet lineups.
Yeah, that's I mean, I feel like if you like something, you should just roll with it for the most part. But speaking of like the lineups, you said you only play like 3 during the week and stuff like that. Do you typically like what kind of tournaments are you typically playing? Are you playing like the double ups mostly, like heads up? Are you playing like 3-way matchups? Like, what do you like when you get your 3 lineups? What are like the percentages you're looking at when it comes to like spreading out those lineups in those kind of tournaments?
All GPPs is what I play. Like, I don't do the double ups. I don't. I don't stake a ton of money in there, but like I try to put one in the single entry. I like those type of contests, like the driver, the $100, the $200. That's about the highest I go. And then I'll put some in the 33 and like that kind of stuff. But I don't do the double ups. I know a lot of people that do that and make money, but like I'm sort of the reason I play DFS because I know how hard it is, right? Like you can just get totally wiped out. So there's a lot of luck involved and there's no experts really out there. You just got to hope that 1 week that things happen right for you, that you have enough money in the right contest. And that's why I do GPPs, because you can hit the lottery ticket. You can hit the 60K like your boy. So you can get that's available if you have that perfect week.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm just trying to figure out with guys that do pretty well in DFS how they attack it. So you just go straight GPPs, and then none of the mid caching kind of things. It's like you're going for the home run swing for most of the time.
That's it, man.
I like it. That's a rise of fire mentality that I can dig. That's for sure.
That's right.
I absolutely love it. I cannot ever argue that ever. So I'm looking at the 7K range. Speaking of rising and firing, we're looking at Shane Lowry, who we just talked about, Russell Henley, Jason Kokrak, Alex Noren, Keegan Bradley, Kevin Na, Sergio, your boy, Tringali, Van Ruin. I mean, I can go through. I'm not going to name all these guys, but the big list is at 7K. Who's a guy that you really like here, and here's a guy that you're just like, I'm just staying away from? Because I feel like there's some spots to fade here.
Yeah, I like Keegan here. He's been solid, man, and I like him on these longer courses where ball striking matters, where off the tee game matters. So I like this spot sort of for Keegan. I like the no cut aspect of it for him. The guy that I'm fading this week in this range would be Brian Harmon, and I think he's got a fair price. But when I ran, my models, he was. He's 61st in off the tee, 61st in par 5 scoring, 66th in approach. Like the numbers are just not well, and I don't think this is going to be a great setup for him.
Yeah. So as far as the play over here, I do really like that Keegan Bradley play. I think he's going to play really well this week. I think he can run up the birdies. I think that's a good spot. I think Cameron Champ's been in really good form of late. He's kind of that Johnny Vegas, mold for the most part, where it's a boomer bust kind of deal. So I kind of like that. A guy I'm kind of avoiding because I don't think I could take his volatility is Siwoo Kim. He's just like a walking heart attack, I feel like, and you don't know what you're going to get with him. Very talented, but I don't know if I can handle this week with Siwoo Kim.
Yeah, no, I hear you. He's he's hit or miss.
I don't know if I can take that heartbreak this week with him, especially with the DFS lineup. I don't think I can take it too much. But the 6K range, I'm not gonna do any fades, obviously, because you could fade a bunch of people here. But who's a guy you really like here in the 6K range?
So a couple of guys like down low. We had mentioned before. Keith Mitchell, obviously 6,500, I think is going to be very attractive. Yeah. Don't mind Taylor Gooch at all, down at 6,200. I also don't hate Hudson Swafford at Stone Min. Like if I'm going to play Rahm, I don't mind going 6K Swafford. Like, he was 11th last week at the Northern Trust.
Yeah,
he
he's
had
been
his
great
best
form.
off the tee week of the year. He lost 3.5 strokes putting and still finished 11th. 37th at the Wyndham. Like, at Stone Min, if you can get him to like finish 25th out of 69 guys and have the winner, you can do worse than that.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, as far as like fading, I mean, like a guy, I don't know. I'm just fading the old guys at this point because I feel like the super season has just been coming down to an end. And like you had great stretches of Stuart Sink and Lee Westwood and all this good stuff. I feel like staying away. But like, what's the deal with Ryan Palmer? Like, he was kind of a darling for a time, and now look at him. He's at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, cooled off. And maybe you hit the nail on the head when you said this super season has just, there's guys that are ready to get home and they're ready to see their kids and they're ready to see their family and they're ready to for the grind to be over for a little bit. So that could very well be it.
Yeah, but as far as playing somebody, Keith Mitchell was that guy. That's the guy I'm kind of looking at. And I agree with you. Gooch is definitely a guy that could be really sneaky good this week. So I like that as well. But now, since we went through it all, I got to make a lineup with you. Since in the spirit of things, since you don't play double ups and those kind of things, I'm not putting this in a double up. I'm going to put this in a single entry. I'm going for the home run swing because that's what you're doing. I'm rolling with you right here. So that's the kind of idea we're going to get here. So let's make a lineup. I'm letting you lead off. Who are you going to lead off with? Anybody you want, top, bottom, doesn't matter.
All right. I'll start with Bryson because he's my favorite sort of play of the week.
Okay, great. So 9,300, we're at 8,140. I'm going down here. I mean, if I don't put him on here, I just feel like I'm hypocritical at this point. I'm going to go real low with Keith Mitchell, 6,500. So then we're back up to 8,550 for our average.
Okay, let me see here. Let's go Paul Casey, 8,200. We talked about him a lot. Our guy Mitch asked about him. I like him in there.
Yep, I like that as well because I think he's going to be a good fantasy play as well. I am looking, you know what? It's a no-cut event, and I think he's going to get a lot of birdies and eagles. I'm going with your boy, Sergio Garcia at 7,600. So that gives us 9,200 for two guys.
That's not bad. I'll do, let's see. I'll say Rory, 9,400. And then you pretty much have your pick of anyone in the 8K range to throw in there.
Absolutely. So usually I leave some money off the board, but you were telling me we got to play the guy that's going to, do the best for us over here. There's a couple guys I'm looking at. I'm looking at Scotty Scheffler. I'm looking at Harris English. I'm looking at Sam Burns, who can get a lot of birdies. And we got Kokrak. There's so many ways I can go here. But you know what? I'm going your route. I'm not overthinking it. I'm going to use up most of the salary this go around because, I've been kind of letting up salary before because I feel like that was the right approach. It hasn't necessarily been the right approach. And this is a guy that can run up birdies left and right, and he can do it the best of them. Scotty Scheffler. So I'm going to leave 100 off the board right there, which is like the minimum I can leave at that point. So we got Bryson, Keith Mitchell, Paul Casey, Sergio Garcia, Rory McIlroy, and Scotty Scheffler. That is the lineup.
Let's go. Love it, man.
Absolutely. So that's going to be the lineup. I'm going to put that in a single entry because, no double up here this week because that's not what we're about this week. We're about rising and firing. I'm going to lock that puppy in. I'm going to find a nice little single up there. So that's what we're going to do there. But before you go, I wanted to talk about something else here, something that you're very passionate about. You do every Wednesday night. It's a Jock Market Power Hour. And I'll tell you what, it's electric. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of fun. We all know the stock market's crazy. And you're buying shares of these guys and you're picking positions and everything. And you know what? Even if you bust for the most part, you still have some money left over. So it's not like you lose your money completely, but it's a great aspect. And if you want to talk more about it, please do.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's very cool. So it's basically stock market DFS. The IPO closing hour, I do the show with Rick Gaiman on his YouTube channel where we kind of cover it and walk you guys through it. But essentially, it is what it sounds like. It's an open bid for every player in the field. So there's a number of shares. Say it's 100 shares. I don't know how many it is per player, but You bid $8, I bid $8.25. The price kind of creeps up until that IPO closes, and whoever has the remaining bids is allocated that amount of shares. What it's basically doing is asking you to find players that will outperform their expectation. So if the expectation is that Sergio Garcia this week is going to finish 32nd, let's say, out of a 69-man field. If he finishes 31st, you're making money. If he finishes 30th, you're making a little more money. And incrementally, that goes up the higher he finishes. But what's also cool is if he finishes 35th, you're not totally wiped out like you are in an outright market where if you have a guy who finishes second, you lose. If you have a DFS lineup that finishes just out of the money, you lose all of that entry fee. Like you get most of that back, like you kind of alluded to. So if you paid $5 a share and he needed to finish 32nd, he ends up finishing 35th, you may get back like $4.75 per share. So you lose a quarter. You know what I mean? And there's all these different scenarios like that. It's really cool. If anyone hasn't done it before, I would recommend downloading the Jock Market app on the App Store. There's free contests there where they give away free money. I get your feet wet in that a little bit so you understand how it kind of works before you dive right in with actual cash. And then hop over to the show. Join us. We'd be happy to kind of walk you guys through some of the nuances of it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. There's free contests. And on top of that, your show, you guys are giving away free money.
Yeah, we give away $100 every week in $20 increments. So just hop in there, drop your handle, and we'll throw you 20 free bucks all the time.
And I've been on, watching the Jock Market Power and everything. And I can tell you right now, I won $20 one time. So it can be true. It can happen. I'm living proof of it because it was funny. I was watching the show, and then when you guys were done, I stopped watching. Well, you guys go into like the after show after the whole IPO stage and everything. And then I looked and I saw like $20. So I rewatched the show, and then you guys popped up my thing, and I was like, boom, it hit. It was like, it was hilarious, but it was like off the tee bets, and then like it hit and everything. I was like, wow, I actually hit it. So that was like kind of cool. So you can actually win. I'm living proof of it. So
we've given away a ton of money.
That's all, right? They're in the chat.
Yeah, they're great guys. You drop your handle in the chat. They're super about growing this and sort of building a community around it. And it's really, they've only been around for a year, but it's taken off. I think that they're doing it right. And they're doing right by their customers. And they've built something that I think is sustainable and fun.
Yeah, and it's a different change when it comes down to it. So it's not just your typical betting in DFS. It's a different twist to it, and I absolutely love it. But I loved having you here on, Joe. I appreciate it. It was tons of fun. I love picking your brain, especially on the DFS side, because I'm still getting all my info with that as well. So that was good info, especially with the bets and everything. And all those other little tidbits that you brought out to everything. Those are some things I didn't realize with some of these things. So as far as the tournament goes with, answer only, going for a couple, go arounds and stuff like that. So that was some really great info. You can find Joe at Tour Picks. He's on the Preferred Lines podcast with his buddy Chad. Great dude. DFS writer on OddsCheckerUS. So always putting out great info for DFS there. And then, of course, we just talked about Jock Market Power Hour, the most electrifying Wednesday night. It
is. It's fun, man.
When it comes to golf, I'm not lying. I love it. And, I love action as much as the next guy. And it's a cool, different kind of action, and we talked about it before. It's you won't lose everything. If let's say you're completely wrong with everything, I still have some money left over. I'm going to look for some penny stocks. Before you go, give me one penny stock guy that you feel like I can kind of take advantage of.
Well, it's funny because the stock price is different than DFS or DraftKings or a sports book because it pretty much depends on popularity, right? Mm-hmm. I would say Keith Mitchell, but I feel like he's going to be very popular, which may drive his price up a little bit. Why not Lee Westwood? I think he's going to go very overlooked. I think that I have this little take there where, it's not, Jock Market isn't available overseas yet. It's only in the US. So I feel like a lot of the English guys and the guys from overseas tend to get overlooked a little bit a lot of times in there. Guys like Casey and Fitzpatrick, usually I feel like their price is pretty fair in comparison to where they're at on an odds board. So I'll go Lee Westwood, penny stock of the week.
All right, I like it. I'm going to look out for him. And thanks again, Joe. Let's go make that money.
All right, buddy. Thanks again, man.